Welcome into another week of the A-List podcast. I'm Kwani Lunis, joined as always by Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, whose mom just celebrated her 75th birthday. So happy birthday to Mama Washburn.
Look at how that made it. Now, Gary never smiles, but you saw when you said Mama said it, Kool-Aid grin.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm glad she's still, obviously it's a blessing to have a mom reach 75. So yeah, we celebrated with her. But yeah, it's thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sure I'll pass along to her. She enjoyed it. So yeah, we had a good time. We celebrated with her this weekend in Los Angeles.
What kind of cake y'all had, Gary? Because the cake looked good.
Yeah, what kind of cake?
It was like a strawberry shortcake. But yeah,
and you ain't bring me a slice. Damn.
Come on now.
No, didn't bring.
If his mom had known, she would have sent us a slice of cake.
She would have put it in a little Tupperware box.
A nice little box.
Exactly. Would have done that, but
it'd be your own podcast.
She don't like you. No, I'm being. She has to. So she likes Sherrod. She likes Sherrod. So no. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't bring it cross country on my flight. A piece of cake.
Okay.
Yeah,
you would have been sitting with the little seatbelt, just holding it on.
But if you'd have did that, I would have eat it, right? You know that, right?
No, I know you would have.
I would have
found it. I would have saved it for this episode and be like, what Gary did for me? This is true friendship. Brought me a piece of cake from his mama birthday party from coast to coast.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't do that because you didn't do that. So
big yikes.
Yeah, my fault, man. Next time.
There we go. That sounds like a plan.
We got more big things to talk about, right, Kwani?
Yeah, over the weekend, we'll start with a more recent event.
Damn, Sherrod, you want some water, bro? You
thirsty?
Man.
Stay hydrated.
I'm thirsty.
The show.
I'm like the end of the Celtics bench, man. I'm thirsty.
Old school glasses of water.
He's getting roasted for being hydrated, but that is a big glass of water.
It's a big old school glass of water.
Right.
That's how you get your
grandma.
Give me a glass of water.
Cabinet. Right.
Gary, I had to have a big glass of water when I went back to the well and scooped it up.
I need help. Both of you need help.
Okay, let's keep moving, please.
Do they not know about well water? Is that like...
We know, we understand, but that's just why it's funny.
Because you young people...
Yes, we actually get our water from the tap now. I don't know if you realize. It's pretty convenient. But this weekend, on Saturday, Marcus Smart had a Young Game Changers launch event for his brand. He has a clothing line that it's basically his brand, but it's supposed to be, despite color or gender, really just like a big message of promoting inclusivity. Bobby Manning was there as well. I went just to kind of just be there. Bobby Manning actually did some work and got an interview and was able to catch up with Marcus Smart. What was, Sherrod, we're probably a little more versed in the interview itself. So what was your biggest takeaway from that conversation? The biggest
thing was that Marcus indicated that his health isn't quite at 100%. And that he's close, but he's not quite there yet. And that's something that, when you look at this Celtics team, you look at them going into camp, ideally you want everybody at 100%. But when you think about no Danilo Gallinari, Marcus is going to be less than 100%. And, Jason Tatum, I'm assuming is going to be, fairly close to 100%. But again, with the revelation that he had about, his wrist during the playoffs and things like that, we're not really 100% sure that he's going to be at or close to 100%. There's a lot of question marks that the Celtics are certainly going to look to address early on in training camp. And Marcus Smart's, that ankle is one of them. But the thing that I keep coming back to with this team is this. We're going to talk about how they progress throughout the season, all season long, obviously. But at the end of the day, what are you going to get done in April and May? Are you going to have the staying power to be there when it absolutely matters? But again, you can't get too caught up in that because there's a hell of a lot of games you got to play before you get there. And if you take your eye off of those, next thing you know, you find yourself, fighting just to get out of the first round of the playoffs when you should have taken the regular season a little more serious. They got lucky last year, and from a standpoint of their early struggles didn't decimate them to the point where it cost them at the very end. But you don't want to have to work as hard as they had to at the start of the season just to get back into the thick of things. So we'll see.
That being said, you mentioned Gallinari. Formally, it came out after last week's episode, so I'm sure at this point most Celtics fans know that it was worse than expected, and he did suffer that ACL tear in his left knee, which means he's actually going to be out longer than expected. And as Gary actually hinted at in that last episode, Carmelo Anthony is a person that the Celtics could consider. Melo. Syracuse, yes, unfortunately. But with that being said, Gary, you have said the reports are gaining traction simply because he is, still available to play and could potentially fill in the Celtics roster. So what have you either heard or what more insight do you have since last week?
Please talk to us, Washburn-Damas.
No.
Okay, so I think it's something that they're considering. There is no rush, but the fact is there is kind of a rush because Carmelo is going to be more marketable as like the off season's about to end. We got 3 weeks before the beginning of training camp. And the Sixers just signed Montrezl Harrell. My man Montrezl, I just call him Montrezl. Montrezl Harrell to a 2-year deal after he got off his weed charge. His weed got
the felony that it is.
Yeah, he was doing this Cheech and Chong thing. Look that up, Kwani. Yeah, you have no idea what that is.
I got you.
Yeah, he was doing his Snoop Dogg Up in Smoke tour, and
Sherrod has so much water in that cup. I can't get over it.
How big is that? It's like a 45-ounce glass.
It's a 40, anyway. Gary. It's a different kind of 40.
It's a 40. Oh God, it's not when this podcast couldn't descend any lower. Anyway, so to me, there is a sense of urgency. Now, Adam Himmelsbach, the Globe reporter, my colleague, reported that they're okay with like running out Sam Hauser, and they don't, I sort of expect Brad to say that, but I think they're going to add another player before training camp begins. Do you trust Sam Hauser in that role where he really didn't have much of a chance last year? Oh, let's throw Sam into that. I mean, I think you can give him increased minutes. I think you can give him an increased role, but to say, oh, he can replace Danilo Gallinari or feel that, I think that they need another body. I think that if Carmelo's on board with being a player who can play 10 to 15 minutes a game, sometimes 20, he played 26 last year in LA. I don't know if he'll get that many, depending on his performance, but I think it's something they should highly consider, and they need another veteran in the locker room. So I think it's something they're thinking about, but obviously Brad's not going to lend his hand, show his hand right now. But I think the time is getting close because you've got 3 weeks before camp.
Well, Gary, along those same lines, the one thing just in people I've spoken to about Carmelo the last week or so, the thing that jumps out that everyone I've spoken to says is that there's nothing left for him to do at this level other than win a championship and be part of a championship caliber team. And he's going to do whatever he thinks makes him that much closer to being part of a championship team. And someone I spoke with, they emphasize the word part because in the past, Carmelo thought he could be that guy, that he could put the team on his back like he did his only year at Syracuse and lead them to a national championship.
His only class.
Stop the blasphemy.
3 credits.
What you taking, Carmelo? Basketball.
Communications.
Intro to basketball.
Carmelo Anthony was a student athlete for 1 year at Syracuse University. That's going to be my story, and I'm not.
What was his major?
He was majoring whatever his major was. He was majoring it, though. He was in a major job.
His major was the NCAA tournament.
As I was saying, BC Pigeon and Cal Cubby, as I was saying, his focus is being part of the championship puzzle and not necessarily the centerpiece. And that's why I think really it's on Brad. I don't think it's an issue of Carmelo, whether he wants to come to Boston or not. I think it's on Brad to offer him a contract. And it has to be the right kind of contract. It doesn't have to be like a 2-year, $22 million or anything like that. It just has to be a contract with guaranteed money. I don't think Carmelo is coming here and on a 10-day. I don't see, because frankly, he can get a guaranteed contract on a lot of teams, I think, as he is right now. But if he wants to be part of a championship caliber team, I think Boston is probably the best option that he's going to have at his disposal. But again, it's going to be on Brad to pull the trigger on that and make it happen.
That being said, I have a question for the two of you because you have all this media experience. When it comes to storylines that go through the media circuit, and you know how Boston is, once one person says something, they're running with it, they're talking about it ad nauseum every single day. And specifically this Carmelo Anthony conversation, once it hit the news circuits, everyone's been talking about it for the last 2 weeks. So with that being said, how much of an influence do you think the media has, specifically in Boston, when it comes to the way people are perceived based on the way that they're talked about here?
It has a role, but ultimately the thing that I've found just in my time here in Boston is that if you can ball out, if the team's winning, people are going to be cool with you. If you don't do those things and you're expected to, they're going to have an issue. Carmelo, at this point in his career, no one is expecting him to come into Boston and be like 20-10, 20-7 Carmelo. Just like when Shaquille O'Neal came to Boston, no one expected him to be MVP Shaquille. And I think because of that, it wouldn't be, I don't think he would have an issue with meeting expectations because I think the expectations are going to be realistic with him. And when you look at the guys that he's playing around, when you have a guy like Jason Tatum, you got a guy like Jaylen Brown, you got an Al Horford, you got a Robert Williams III, you got Marcus Smart, you got all the Malcolm Brogdon, you got all these guys who are on the rise in terms of their ability to score the ball, their ability to be impact players offensively. If you're Carmelo, you're not going to get as many opportunities, but damn, you're going to get the kind of looks that you were hoping you'd get, you know, when you were leading the Knicks, and then they added a piece or two. So I don't think the expectation issue is going to be that with Carmelo if he came to Boston. I think the biggest thing for him is just whether he's going to be physically ready to contribute, and it can do it on a more consistent basis, knowing that he's going to get fewer opportunities to impact the game because he'll be playing less minutes and obviously get fewer shots.
Well, I think Carmelo's just still, at this point of his career, a polarizing figure. There's still controversial figure. And it's not, you know, Carmelo's never really been.
That's because he got an MVP vote on a year when he shouldn't have got an MVP vote. I don't know who the hell gave him that damn vote. Hi, Gary.
You? Yikes.
Damn, Kwani, are you serious right now?
I forgot about that. I actually did, yeah.
Oh, God.
Really?
Did you just play right into Sherrod's whack ass, you know? Oh my God, Kwani.
Sorry,
Gary, that was the spot on 3. Kwani, she just ran to the corner. I threw the ball, and she just caught and raised.
God, Kwani. Oh my goodness.
That's my teammate right there. Great teammate.
The New Jersey public.
The Jersey came out of us.
Jersey public school education system needs an upgrade.
I went to Catholic school. Get it correct.
Oh, okay. My fault.
I did public school in Jersey for one semester.
Anyway,
I actually had the best of both worlds, but continue.
I think Carmelo is my 2013 MVP. Carmelo is still a controversial, polarizing figure, although he's not really been involved in much controversy. I mean, he's been tabbed as a selfish, me-first player in his career. I mean, it didn't work out for him in New York. You know, he asked out of Denver, and then, you know, things happened to him in Oklahoma City. I think the worst thing that happened, or he said, was, you know, when they asked him in Oklahoma City whether he'd come off the bench, and he was like, yeah, whatever, yeah, you quit playing. You know, when they asked him about a bench role, and then it ended up that was kind of where he was descending. And I think now, but that's like 5 years ago. Now I think he's been a positive influence. He had 2 good productive years, or 3 in Portland. I think 2 years, good years in Portland, where he, you know, reestablished himself, reestablished his brand. The Lakers, he caused no troubles there. He played on a team that just had a lot of chaos around him. So I think he brings to Boston and the Boston fans, the Knicks Carmelo, like a selfish player who's going to come in and be like, nah, Jason, I need to be taking more shots, bro. Like, and I just don't think that that's nearly accurate. The man is 38 years old. Like, he is not going to be up there trying to act like he's 25. This is not 2007 or something like that, Melo. Like,
or 2013.
Yeah, or his best year of his career, 2013, where he was the MVP of the league. So anyway, period. with a T at the end.
Okay, Gary's hip.
Yeah, with a period. So I think that he's a polarizing figure. He's the most, probably interesting name still out there in the free agent. I mean, you could say Dwight Howard, but Dwight Howard would cause the same stir, and so would DeMarcus Cousins. But I think Carmelo is someone that I honestly think Celtics fans are intrigued with. He's an intriguing player because you done seen him hit 2, 3, 4, 5 threes in a row, roll up the points, score 30 something in a game occasionally, not all the time. Like he's capable. He scored 20 or more points, I think 11 games of his 69 games last year. Like he put up 20 or more. So he's still capable of that. And I think that's what's alluring about him. That dude who, because I mean, I've talked to coaches over the years who are just marvel at Carmelo's skills. The fact that he's 6'9", he is not 6'4", 6'5". He is literally 6'9". He's just a big shooting guard, a big guy who could post you up, use his size, and now he's expanding his range to the 3. So he's still a very, intriguing player, even at age 38. Now, how much does he have left? But I don't think it's a question of he'd be a bad locker room guy, or he'd be going to email like, oh man, I need my 20 shots, man. What's up with this? Like, come on, he's 38. Like, no, he's trying to like a lot of guys in his generation, that class of 03, he's trying to stay in the league. All his contemporaries except LeBron, Wade gone, Bosh gone, all them dudes gone except Bron.
Darko gone.
Huh?
Darko Milicic.
Darko. After that amazing career Darko put up, gone. Chris Kaman, gone. I mean, Kurt Heinrich, gone.
Kurt Heinrich, that's my guy.
It's like that. It's like the episode. It's like the movie Life when dudes just start disappearing. When all of them died in the prison. I mean, it's like Melo is just trying to hang around. Right. And I think he's, like you said, Sherrod, he's just trying to win a chip. He wants to go out as a winner.
Yeah.
He amazingly, he should get a Lifetime Achievement Award for leading whack ass Syracuse to a championship.
Easy,
Kyle
Cubby.
Easy. My goodness. I couldn't even name none of them dudes who played. Who else was on that team?
Easy. Just
Carmelo and the Miracles.
Jason Kidd. How many chips Jason Kidd get at
Cal?
It
was Carmelo and the Miracles. I couldn't name another except Jerry McNamara, who was in his 7th year then. But I couldn't name anybody off that Syracuse team besides Melo. Hakeem Ward, who I thought would be a great pro. Like I was all in on Hakeem Ward stock when he. I was so in on. I was so disappointed.
Was he your MVP too?
Gary be all in on Syracuse.
I was so in on Hakeem Ward. Viewers, tell me what you all thought. Didn't y'all think Hakeem Ward was going to be a nice? The comments. Didn't y'all think Hakeem was going to be a nice
7-8 years in the league.
I was so disappointed. Anyway, he just needs to win a championship, NBA championship. I think he wants to go out a winner. This is his best chance. So we'll see I think it's in this. I think Carmelo's side is interested. It's all about what the Celtics do. That's what I know. Carmelo would be interested. It's all about what Brad and the brass want to do in that situation.
And as with any small business, any business really doesn't even have to just be small, but every single hire that you make for your business counts. And no hiring partner understands that like Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. So instead of spending hours on multiple job sites trying to find who's best for the job and has the right skill set, you can all do all of that right there on Indeed. You can find the top talent with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like the Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. If you hate waiting, Indeed's US data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers actually find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches the job description that they post the moment they sponsor a job. And the thing that we love on the A-List podcast about Indeed is the fact that they do have this instant match, which again, just makes it so much easier for you to hire. Indeed knows that when you're doing everything for your company, you can't afford to overspend on hiring. So we're here on the A-List podcast. We're helping you out a little bit as well. All you have to do is visit Indeed.com/A-List to start. Go to Indeed.com/A-List. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing is not available for everyone. You need to hire, you need Indeed. Let's go around the association for a second, because as we know, everything that happens for the most part in the league somehow will affect the Boston Celtics. And the biggest one is Donovan Mitchell getting traded to Cleveland. News break. What was your two reaction to hearing that Trader Danny was at it again, but now in Utah?
Love it. Love it. I mean,
really?
Well, here's the thing. From Utah's perspective, if you're going to start over, you might as well start over if you're going to scorch the earth and get as many lottery tickets as you can. And that's what they're doing. This is Danny Ainge circa 2000, what is it, 13? Celtics, when they made all those deals with, Brooklyn and getting their picks, getting flips and swaps and just basically fleecing them.
The man got 8 people for one person, essentially, Danny, this time.
Yeah. And the difference now, though, is that, Brooklyn, they were getting basically players who were past their prime, who they were hoping has a little bit of fuel left in the tank. Donovan Mitchell hasn't even hit his prime yet. And you look at the pieces that that Cleveland has around Donovan Mitchell, they're going to be good. I mean, they gave a lot of teams fits, this past year, but they're going to be really good. And I would not be surprised if you're watching Cleveland this year and you're looking at them and thinking like, damn, defensively, they look a lot like the Celtics. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they have a player in Donovan Mitchell who is a dynamic scorer, but defensively, not good. So don't be surprised to see them have, use their big, similar to how Boston uses Robert Williams in that free safety range, not only to help the defense be strong, but basically to protect Donovan from getting torched at that end of the floor. And when you look at what I think offensively, they're going to have their challenges at that end of the floor. But if your foundation is defensively and you add a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who's going to significantly bolster what you can do offensively, they're a team that I could easily see playing their way into a top 4 seeding in the East this year. I could absolutely see that.
I think it was a great move for the Cleveland Cavaliers because they're just trying to get back. Like when LeBron left after 2018 or whatever, and went to the Lakers. They've struggled. They went back to the depths of just kind of despair in terms of an NBA team and lottery picks, and they made some good decisions in terms of getting Darius Garland to be Evan Mobley, and they traded for Jarrett Allen. They've made good acquisitions. They put together a nice young team. J.B. Bickerstaff to I think a lot of surprises has become a very, very good coach after some struggles and some previous stops. He has kept that job and led them in the right direction, and they need star power. And free agents are not going to sign in Cleveland. I mean, this is not because they're not going to play with LeBron, right? So they're not the big time players are not going to go and take Cleveland's max money. But now it becomes a more attractive place. Now you've got Donovan Mitchell with multiple years in this deal. You got Evan Mobley. You got Darius Garland. You got Jarrett Allen. You got a good base and foundation. Now you did trade Colin Sexton, who really didn't have a future in Cleveland. Lauri Markkanen, who's kind of often injured. The kid from Kansas, who was their first-round pick. They gave up some stuff and some 3 first-round picks and then 2 pick swaps. So Danny and Justin Zanuck, because I always want to make this clear, like, Danny, everybody's thinking Danny is like all in on running the show and like Danny's putting in a voice, but I don't think Danny is like Danny in Boston. I think Justin Zanuck is the GM there. Danny is not just like, he ain't the Suge Knight. He ain't Suge Knight in Utah. He ain't running it like Death Row Records. He is not taking full control and just telling everybody to get the step back, let old DA run thing, and I'm gonna get us back. No, I think he has a voice. I think he is definitely on board with rebuilding, and I think anyone who saw that Utah underachieved with Gobert and Mitchell, thought, okay, it's time to get both these dudes up out of here. They're not getting along. They're not winning. They lost that first round series to Dallas when Luka was playing on one leg. So I think everybody agreed in Utah it was time for them to rebuild. And I think it's a great way for them to rebuild with good young players. Sexton now becomes kind of their centerpiece. They still got Jordan Clarkson, and they can still make some trades because they still got Mike Conley there and stuff. But they got Jared Vanderbilt. They got a good young Malik Beasley, good young players who can just play hard under a new coach and Will Hardy, figure it out. But I think for Cleveland, it's a deal that you sort of have to make if you want to be in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. They got a good – now, are they a little too young? Probably, right? You know, you got Garland's 23, Mobley's entering his second year, Jared Allen has to prove he can be more consistent out there and stay healthy. But they have the potential. So I think it was a good trade for Cleveland. Does this put them in the top four? We'll see, because now Philadelphia got stronger with my man Montrezl, and you got Milwaukee and Boston, and then you got see how Miami looks. But you definitely
don't forget about Brooklyn.
Yeah, and
they reunited, and they feel so good.
About Brooklyn, and but I do think Cleveland gave itself a chance, and they have a dynamic two guard now. So the backcourt, it's a small backcourt, but you got big men, you know, to make up for that, and Mobley and Jared Allen. So I think Cleveland's on its way up. I don't think it's a fight, you know, each going to make East Conference Finals, but it's a team that nobody's going, when they get their stuff together defensively and they figure out how to, because I think, to be honest with you, with Donovan Mitchell's defense, I think he can defend. He just don't want to. It's not like he doesn't have the skills to be a good defender. It's not like, well, you a step slow. No. Well, it's technique and it's want to. So I think J.B. Bickerstaff, who has defensive mindset, will turn Donovan Mitchell into a better defender. Because I think in that system, you've got to defend. And I don't think, and even the dudes who are the most prolific scorers, that give me the ball, I'm a carry us, don't want to be embarrassed on defense and don't want to be the guy who's the weak link on defense on when they get to a defensive team. That was a thing that what made Kevin Garnett such a leader in Boston was dudes who came to Boston who generally weren't defenders became defenders because they didn't want to let Kevin down and they didn't want to let Doc down and Perk. And them dudes who like, oh, man, you can't get on the court if you're not going to at least try to defend.
They didn't want those guys to get in their ass. That's what they were afraid of. That's what that was about.
And I think the Cavaliers say, listen, you want to be on the floor. We want to have a grind, defensive, tough mindset, just like the city of Cleveland. You got to play some D, Donovan. You can't just sit there and do ole, ole. You know, that Matador shit ain't working.
Put that easy pass away when you play defense.
You got to stand in front of your defender and improve. And there's been guys, and I just say, you look at Mitchell, and it's not like he doesn't have the skills to defend. It's all technique and work, right? It's not like he's only not playing defense because he's been allowed not to play defense. In this situation in Cleveland, I think he becomes a better player.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that because there's, as Gary pointed out, I mean, it's not about athleticism or ability or lateral quickness or any of those things. It's about one. And what happens with a lot of guys like Donovan Mitchell is they get by because they're so exceptional at scoring the ball that people just kind of look past what they do defensively and just kind of take on the mindset that, well, you know, he's such a great scorer. We'll just kind of let that defensive shortcomings, you know, we'll just let that slide. But if you're trying to win a championship or hell make a deep playoff run, your best player can't be that guy. That's why, you know, you look at guys like Kyrie Irving. I mean, Kyrie, say what you want, but his effort in Brooklyn defensively, way different than what we saw in Boston on a way greater level because, you know, he understands and guys with that ability understand you have to make an impact at both ends of the floor. And if that impact is great at one end and ghastly at the other, that's a problem. And you will get called out. You will get singled out. People will point out the ole defense that you bring to the game. They'll point out that easy pass that you be giving everybody when you're defending them. Too many easy passes are being given out, frankly, by great players. Kevin Durant had that knock against him, and you see the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, he's a different kind of dude defensively. He can definitely make his presence felt, and I do think Donovan will have the opportunity to do that. I'm not convinced that he's going to buy into it as well as I think Cleveland is going to need him to, because he's got some pretty damn good backline defenders behind him. And again, I don't know if he's going to subconsciously take on the same mindset that he had when he played with Rudy. Because he knew if he got beat in Utah, I got the best eraser in the back. And now, when you look at Jarrett Allen, you look at Mobley, he's got 2 guys who have the potential to clean up a lot of his mess. So I'm not sold that he's gonna get it as far as what he needs to do to get better and lead that team defensively.
Switching teams, Gary already alluded to it, but Montrezl Harrell signing reportedly a 2-year, $5.2 million deal with the Sixers. Now he gets to reunite with James Harden and Doc Rivers. How does him being on that team affect the Celtics?
Montrezl,
if at all.
Yes,
your boy Gary. Go ahead. Talk about your boy Montrezl.
I just think with him and Jay, what's the dude from Miami Heat? Oh man, I'm blanking out again.
Which guy?
This is not Fiondu. We're not talking about Fiondu.
No more Fiondu. Third episode in a row.
No, not talking about him. JR. Oh gosh. He played for Miami. The tough guy. Huh?
You talking about PJ? You talking about PJ?
PJ Tucker?
PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker.
Okay.
Him and PJ Tucker give the Sixers real toughness. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Montrezl is going to make a huge difference. Like,
that's his name
now. The rim, but he's also a liability defensively. But I just think they adds another tough player, and I just think they need to add to that. Yeah, another guy to have Harden's back, another guy to defend if he wants to defend, another guy to score at the rim, another guy to pump up the crowd. So I think that this adds. He's a solid player. He's bounced around. He's got his limitations, but I think he's going to help the Sixers in obviously a backup center, backup power forward role.
Well, shout out to Harden for being gracious enough to give up some salary so he can get all these players, though, right? Yeah, Man of the Year.
The Pope.
The Medal of Freedom.
Mandela. All the sacrifices he made to give up.
What great ones do, Gary. You know that. They give. They give and they keep giving.
Without asking.
A 2-year, $68 million deal with a player option for a second year.
Yeah, which Harrell also has a player option in 2023.
Mandela.
Yeah.
Let's give
looking out for his people.
Yes.
Sherrod, your thoughts?
It's a good pickup for the Sixers. I mean, just on a simple, cookies on the bottom shelf basis, they added more talent. He's a guy that we know can make an impact in this league. But as Gary pointed out, his defense does leave a lot to be desired. And I'm not so much worried about him fitting in because I think he'll fit in well. But I do worry about what happens when you get to the postseason and you get to those down to the wire games. Is he going to be comfortable Is he going to be comfortable sitting on the sideline because Doc Rivers don't trust him to defend? Is he going to chirp about that when we get to the playoffs? If he has a game where he's like 7 of 9 and he's got like 17 points, but they need stops and they decide to go with Tobias Harris, playing him instead of Harrell, even though he may have a better game, how is he going to handle that stuff? I'm not sold on him being at that point in his career where it's about winning. I think it's about, for him, I think it's still a little bit of winning on his terms, which I think was a problem in some of the other places he's been. He had no problem doing what he does as long as he gets to do what he does and you don't tell him what he should and need to do. I'm not sold on Montrezl.
Isn't that how you are, though?
No.
Yes, you are.
No.
Kwani, that's right. Sherrod will do what he do as long as you let him do what he do.
No,
that's everybody.
No, that's not true. That's not true. The thing about your boy Montrezl is that I don't think he's at a point where he's willing to sacrifice elements of his game for the betterment of the team. Like, for example, he needs to become a better defender so that the team can be better. I don't think he's willing to put in the work and make that something that he focuses on getting better at. That's what I mean by he's still all about doing what he does. That's who he is. And I don't think he's mature enough to be candid with you to make that change. And I think it's going to be more of an issue come playoff time than regular season. And that, to me, is a problem for Philly because Doc Rivers, I mean, we can talk about this another day in time, but this is a big year for Doc. I'm not sure Doc Rivers is going to be doing what Doc Rivers is doing right now in Philly if the second round rolls around and Philly ain't there. I'm not even sure Doc will be doing what he's doing if the conference finals rolls around and Philly's not there. This is a big year, and Montrezl, I think, can certainly help them in the regular season. Playoffs, I'm not sold on, though.
Before we close out, let's play a game of fact or fiction because we have this new podcast episode that came out where J.R. Smith was the guest on this set. I have to figure out the name of the podcast. I'll get to that. I'll give them their credit. But basically, the gist of it is he's on the podcast, gets interviewed, and he claims that him, Jamal Crawford, and Isaiah Thomas and Joe Johnson were blackballed from the NBA. The podcast is Complex's Pierce Simpson. And he basically says, if you can look down any bench right now, figure out a name on that roster, we could take the Celtics, pick a guy. Is that person better than J.R. Smith, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Johnson, etc.? From your two perspective, do you think this is true? Are those players being blackballed by the NBA? We say that it's the best players in the league, but is that accurate?
Well, here's the thing. Let's just look at, first of all, it's fiction. They're not being blackballed. Okay. J.R. Smith, right now, your handicap is probably better than your three-point shot right now. So, and you're 36 years old.
And he's in school. He's getting his degree.
Exactly. Much respect to him for doing that. I think that's great. I think more players should do that, frankly, when they're done playing. But see, that's just it. You're kind of done playing. You're 36 years old. Jamal Crawford, who is one of my favorite players to watch. I mean, I would literally pay to watch him play right now because he's that good. You're 42. Joe Johnson, we saw ISO Joe for a hot minute. He's 41. And the young buck is a young, spry Isaiah Thomas, who's 33. Players in those age brackets don't live in the NBA. It's hard for if we're talking about a 28-year-old J.R. Smith and a 31-year-old Jamal. If we're talking 5-10 years ago and those guys weren't in the league, then you might have a case there. But they are well past their prime. And of that group, the only one that I think, frankly, should be in the NBA is Isaiah Thomas. I still think he's good enough to where he can help a team today win games. I don't think J.R. Smith is good enough. And Jamal Crawford, bless your heart, bless the crossover. You ain't that dude no more. And that's again, it hurts me to say that because I love his game so much, but that's just the reality of it. And ISO Joe, if we're playing half court and it's just like, the big three tournament, we're playing half court, ISO Joe is your man. He can get it done. I know Gary Washburn and I to a certain extent, we're really hoping the Celtics would have kept Joe Johnson around a little bit longer. But the idea of keeping Joe Johnson around for the entire season and having him play some type of significant role, no. Because they're probably going to be the 15th man. And last I checked, most teams, they look at that spot as a position to develop. Yeah. And you ain't developing no 41-year-old man. He a grown-ass man. He's developed. Exclamation. You ain't developing him. So
you got Gary falling asleep on your answer.
I am not falling asleep. Anyway.
He's pontificating. He's thinking about that 2013 vote for Melo. And what the hell was he thinking? That's what he thinks.
Was it worth
how
it?
Great of a vote that was. Thank you.
That should be your first question if he signs with the Celtics.
Oh yeah, we'll talk.
I voted. I voted for you. I want to be there.
Give me all the scoops.
Sherrod gonna show up with his Syracuse sweater on.
Yeah.
It's you, fool.
It's gonna be the battle of the two of y'all.
It's you, fool. It's you. 03, fool. Yeah.
I was there, bro.
I was there. Throwing up all kinds of signs.
Go orange.
Seed walking.
I can't.
Seed walking.
This is gonna be fun. Now I want Melo on the team.
Anyway, I think there's different situations for all four players. I think it's a very easy narrative for JR to group himself with Jamal Crawford, but JR, how do I put this about JR?
He said, let me say this right.
Speak that truth, Gary. Tell the truth, Gary. Tell the truth.
JR is, I think it's a miracle he lasted in the league as long as he did with all the shit that he did during his time. Off the court, on the court, not being a good teammate, not being a selfish player, it's a miracle J.R. Smith lasted as long and won a championship with the bubble Lakers. It's a miracle.
Based off the memes, really.
Yeah, play another. And where's J.R. Where's J.R. from, Kwani?
Stop it, Gary.
Jersey. Straight up Jersey.
So much negativity, and I'm still going to rep him. I don't care. J.R. Smith, shout out to you.
Anyway, it's a miracle that JR lasted as long as he did. It's great that he is, he's always been a very good golfer. People didn't really know that. And now he's taken his talents to NCAA and, gotten his education. But JR was, honestly, Sherrod, as you know, JR was one of the reasons why the NBA didn't want dudes coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. Like he was one of those examples.
He was wild when he came into the league.
Guys like Gerald Green, dudes that just were not meant, that physically were ready, physically had the potential and the skills. JR had the potential and the skills because we covered him in his early days in Denver, and all the way through his up and down career. I've seen him as a rookie. JR to me is fortunate he played in the league, not because his skills, it was always just mental and off the floor and just the whole thing with LeBron forgetting the score of a NBA Finals game. Game one, that key critical game one in 2018 where did you not see the basket fool? Where the game one where if the Cavs can steal that game, then it's a whole different series. And they lost that game in overtime, and the series was never the same. So I applaud JR for what he's done, but JR was not a dude at the end in the bubble who was, if you look at his numbers, he was not coming off the bench helping the Lakers. He was at the end of the bench. They signed him and another Sherrod favorite. Guess who they signed on that team, Sherrod?
No.
Your friend of mine, Mr. Dion Waiters.
Your guy.
Nope. I don't know what you're talking about.
And where did Dion play college ball? So they signed both of those guys, and neither of them helped out. And JR was at the end of the bench for the bubble Lakers, right? And Taylor Horton Tucker was getting the playing time. So I think JR, what I had, if I was a GM taking a chance on him, as maybe a three coming off the bench hitting threes, maybe. But I think the book was out, still not all that there as a great teammate, still not all that there as just a real student of the game. And why take a chance when there's dudes who are half his age, or 10 years younger, who will give you less drama.
That's not a stretch. I mean, they're 18, 19-year-old kids coming to the league. JR's 36, so yeah.
And then in terms of Jamal, I don't know what happened in that stop in Phoenix, but something happened in Phoenix to where the rest of the league, something happened to where his reputation people didn't want to take a chance. I don't know what happened in Phoenix, that last stop.
What's going on?
I still think he can drop buckets. I still think that he's got talent. I still think that he could give you some real work. But 42-year-olds don't generally aren't playing in the league anymore. And two, I think something happened during that last stop, whether it was like he wanted to play more and wasn't a good. I don't know what happened in that last stop in Phoenix. And I said, Joe Johnson is, like Sherrod said, great 3-on-3 half-court player. but is he going to play D? Can he play an up-tempo style? He can give you buckets, but there's dudes at the Y that can give you buckets. But can they play D? Can they play it up-tempo? Can you guard an open court? Can you do what it takes to be a complete NBA player? And people would rather have a young guy. And this is a league, and I think Sherrod would agree. I think you agree, like the old players are getting pushed out. It's just the way it is. Teams would rather invest. I remember covering the league, and with guys like Tyrone Corbin and like dudes that were just like old heads.
Elvin Campbell, your guy.
Yeah. Antoine Carr, the big dog, the original big dog, Antoine Carr, like dudes that were like grown ass men at the end of the bench.
Crazy ass glasses in Utah.
Yeah, like that. You would look at the end of the bench. It was a grown ass fools on the and like it was not no youngsters.
Yeah.
Or the youngsters was like the dude out of high school that Darrell Wright or things like that. Like
Amir Johnson.
We gonna see what he does, but this dude ain't got a long leash at all. It was old heads, but those guys have been pushed out of the league. Okay, the 35, the 36-year-olds, the guys who know how to play, who are total professionals. Those guys, that's what I think the Celtics need, but those guys get pushed out the league and get replaced by these youngsters. The dudes from the G League, the G League Ignite, the G League D-Ignite, whatever, all these overseas, they get replaced by younger guys who make less money and sometimes have less drama. Some of these dudes, like Isaiah, I don't think has been blackballed. I think Isaiah, to me, his problem is he's too talkative on social media. Don't tell everybody your business. Oh, I tried out for this team. They didn't want me. Like Isaiah, people around the league don't like that. They don't like when you go in all mad public with all your travails and ups and downs in terms of like, oh, I tried out for this team. Oh, this team wouldn't even give me a look. Like people don't like that because you're making them look bad. Like
but that's part of who he is, though, Gary.
That is part of who he is. But sometimes when you get older, you gotta mature. You gotta do what you gotta do to stay in the damn league. This league is not, when you get over 30, unless you're Kobe and LeBron and D, and you can call your own shots and you can leave the game when you want, the league is going to push you out eventually. There are 30-plus-year-old players waiting for a phone call right now that are not going to get a phone call, right? Either they retire or they go overseas or they go to China, Sherrod's favorite place. So
China, baby. I'm all about the CBA, baby.
Sherrod loves the Chinese Basketball Association. But the league,
Randolph, 30-20, baby.
The league will push you out. So you have to basically, you can't be AI. You can't be these guys who talk too much. You're too much of a hassle and you don't bring enough game. If you are, what's happening with James Harden? Not enough, like, people are going to start questioning. Or Kyrie, do you have enough game for all this drama? Kevin Durant does still, but do you have enough game for all the drama you bring to the table? So I think some of these guys have to adjust. And I don't think they're all being blackballed. I don't think like there's owners around the league. Okay, guys, all the 29 owners, let's not sign these 4 guys. Ready, break.
Sure,
like, yeah. Like, no. But I think with various issues and stories, I think JR was on his last leg when he was with the Lakers. Isaiah can play a backup role. And I think Isaiah will get a job. I think something happened in Phoenix with Jamal. And I think Joe Johnson's a great half-court player now. But all of what encompasses to play the 3 position in the league, I don't know if he has that much left.
Yeah. Mic drop. There we go. The thoughts are in the books. Anything coming up for you two in your other lives outside of this podcast? Something so weird.
This is all I live for, Kwani, is the
Good,
podcast.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer.
This is what it's all about. Having you two and great partners like Indeed. And,
yes, use those promo codes.
It's the best. It's the best. What about you, Gary?
just looking forward 3 weeks pretty much for the start of training camp and looking forward to what the Celtics do over the next few weeks. We'll be following that. But yeah, it's just a good sports time right now. College football's kicking off, the NFL kicking off this Sunday.
NBA Open.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get the rare time like in, September, October, all
every sport's
going on. And so I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. And basketball will be here before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm enjoying college football so far. It's been a good start for some programs, at least. Not all, but some.
I am not enjoying college football, for the record.
All of a sudden,
Rutgers?
BC was up 21-12, and I'm like, oh, they got this in the bag. They got this on lock with Rutgers, and all of a sudden they lost.
What makes it worse is that, one, obviously I'm from New Jersey, but two, my youngest brother goes to Rutgers. So it's just disrespectful.
That's 2 L's for Kwani this week.
We don't like it. BC
bragging rights.
Better, but I still love y'all. Don't do that. See, get out of here with that, Syracuse.
Oh, we won.
Anyway, we'll see how the ACC pans out in the end, Sherrod, and we'll go from there.
Well, play hard. I hear you, Kwani.
Well, it looks like this is a wrap on this episode of the A-List Podcast. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis. This is the A-List Podcast. We'll be back next week.